Hello and welcome to Light Up UG, where we talk about day-to-day experiences and use these experiences to better ourselves as parents, and in so doing to help, support and help our children to thrive and to be better citizens. Today I'm going to talk about what we call as daily occurrences, whether they are tragedies or whether they are moments of joy, a few things that happen in our societies, but which we can take as good examples to really start and engage in conversations with our children, just to gauge where they are, what they see, how they perceive the realities or the situations that occur, and for us to be able to take lessons from those kinds of conversations, but also to encourage them to take lessons from these kinds of occurrences. And I'm just going to pick on a few situations that have occurred in our society in the recent past. These situations have become synonymous with the day-to-day conversations that you find in our society, among parents, among the working class, the middle class, whether people are somewhere in the rural settings or whether people in the cities. These occurrences somehow impact them directly or indirectly, and then they spark conversations. But it's always important that when these conversations come up, you can always look at your young ones. You can look at the children and ask yourself, what are they thinking about this situation? Are they taking any lessons? Is it speaking to them? Is it communicating to them whatever the issue is? And you allow me to just make reference to some of the notes that I took down here, just to be sure, so that then I can bring us back into this conversation regarding daily circumstances, daily occurrences, and what these help us to teach our children, or if they take anything from them. In the recent past we had, and I'm just going to run very quickly through this so that then I can come back to the conversation. In the recent past we had a tragedy, a very, very, very bad tragedy. A petrol tank exploded in Chigogwa. I think that's on Bombo Road, Bombolwero Road. And the latest, I think, death toll was at 26. And then back a few weeks back, we had that Chitezi land tragedy, where the last count of people who unfortunately lost their lives was 35. That also happened within our communities, and everyone is talking about it. Then some time back, we had this interesting incident between a traffic officer and a lady who was driving a Land Cruiser or Pajero, an SUV. And everyone was talking about it in society. At the end of the day, this woman, we could say, it's alleged she attacked the police officer who tried to stop her. The last we heard from the news and from the media channels that the machine, there is a police machine that was lost. It cost millions. Then the police officer lost his phones, and he was assaulted by this woman. You know, that is kind of, in the world of journalism, it's the typical man biting a dog day. You know, because typically it's usually the dogs that bite people. So you would assume that that's normal. But when you hear a lady slapping and assaulting an officer, that is news, you know. But it's a conversation also. And then the last one that I wanted to make reference of was police constable who was seen, and again this video, like the last one of the traffic officer, also went viral. He was seen diligently directing traffic within the city, and it was a heavy downpour. As I said, it's the rain season, and he was not moved, he was not perturbed, but he was doing his job. A typical public servant, one that I would regard as a hero. I've always said it, by the way, that for me, one of the most I would think the most celebrated would be heroes that would look at traffic officers in Uganda. These ladies and gentlemen, these officers do an excellent job. If you think I'm lying, take the traffic officers off our roads for a day. Even when we are increasing in terms of traffic lights, just give them a day off. See what happens in Uganda and in the cities in Uganda. Just give them a day off. And if I remember correctly, there was a time way back in Uganda when that happened. And you can already see the chaos. So that speaks to us as a society where we are. But now, coming back to the conversation, why I highlighted these incidences. It helps that on top of people sitting in their sitting room, sitting in office, having their conversations with friends, talking about these issues and going back and forth on them and giving their opinions, as a parent who has teenagers, who has youth, who has young people, take these issues and have a conversation with them. And why do I say this? Because this is not the first time that you get to see such incidences. So let's just try to pinpoint some of them and then go into the reasons why. It's so worrying that in this day and age, you could see a truck that has fallen off the road, and that a petrol tank is, spewing petrol, and you see people running towards it. Okay? Because some of these people who lost their lives are young people, typical youth. One would even argue some teenagers. Of course, it's a tragic, it's a tragedy. But for me, the lesson I want to kind of take from it is, how do we prepare our young people, the children, to always be on the alert, to be mindful of certain things? For example, if a petrol tank has kind of crashed with another car, and now it's on the side of the road, spewing petrol, that's a time bomb. Okay? So it helps if you're having a conversation with your children and asking them, if you came across a petrol tank and you were within the vicinity, what would be your action? What would you do? Because it's important for you to gauge where they are in terms of awareness, in terms of preparedness. What is it that they can do to avoid calamities? Go on to this other case where a woman was assaulting a traffic officer, okay? And we've seen this kind of behavior. We've seen this kind of typical behavior. And it takes only such an action for people even to begin asking, is she aware of the law? Is she aware that you cannot assault an officer, whether they are off duty, whether they are on duty? Because this traffic officer was clearly he was doing his job, okay? And we are not here to judge who is right, who is wrong, but we are here to look at what you can do and what you cannot do. Sometimes when you find young people, and typically youth, they tend to get excited and they do a lot of things. Most of the things that they will do at the end of the day will turn out to be deemed illegal. And then at the end of the day, you will hear the term lawlessness in society. And even if sometimes it's within your purview to say, I was wronged, I wasn't in the wrong and the like, it helps the way you compose yourself, the way you carry yourself, what you're supposed to do, the do's and the don'ts. Civility and humility are very, very important virtues. But sometimes when people get excited, you don't see this happening. People will take on action any way they feel they want, okay? And at the end of the day, it's very, very important for us to take these circumstances, whether it's a happy moment where you saw this traffic officer who is performing a public duty and that they are trying to direct traffic and the like, to have a conversation with a young person about it so that they really understand the value of work, the value of hard work, and that when someone takes their work seriously and they take responsibility, people notice and people will say their name and they will praise them and they will give them the respect and recognition that they deserve. You know, so you talk about heroes, you talk about people who inspire others and the like. That typical traffic officer who was seen in the rain busy working and not neglecting his duty is a typical example. But where danger is looming and where we know our young people can get excited as well, it's important for you to kind of again pick the same conversation and hear where your child is, what their thoughts are. I'll end up with a very interesting one because this one I also personally did with my son. Somehow, I don't remember how this conversation was sparked off, but we ended up talking about American politics because I think in a few days' time, the Americans are going to the polls. And if you're one of those people who follow politics, global politics, and you've been following what's happening in America, typically you know the tension and the pressure and the interest that the American election is having and the implications it has globally, but at the same time what's happening in the country in America, that there is a clear, sharp divide. So, long conversation short, when we were having this conversation, I asked my son, so who would you favor? Who are you supporting? And of course, I'm not going to mention my preference over his, but I'll just tell you that we were on two extreme ends. My preference was a different candidate, and surprisingly, my son also was on the other extreme end with the other candidate. Now, the surprise wasn't so much in him choosing who he supports or who I support. The surprise was once he told me that, oh, for me, I think this is the person I support, should be the next president of the United States. I asked him the simple question, why? Why do you think your candidate should be the next president? And I was so surprised at the depth and the ideas that he was giving and the reasons that he was giving to vehemently support this person. And for me, the learning curve wasn't so much about his argument, and we were really having a very interesting conversation, which I really enjoyed so much. In any case, we outsiders, we don't go to the poll, we don't elect in America, so we're in Uganda. But the interesting idea was, through this conversation, I managed to tap into his circle of friends, his social circle, his peers, and the arguments that they were having, you know, around American politics. And in there was a lot. And at the end of the day, the postmortem of our conversation, I started going back at his reasons, and I started kind of positively challenging him. Why? Because I wanted him to think deeper and not just to take peripheral arguments. And at the end of the day, this turned out to be a rich conversation where we were exchanging ideas, but at the same time, we were talking about values and what we see is important, what personally me as an adult, the parent, sees as an important value, what he sees from his Gen Z and his friends and the like. And it was an exchange of ideas, an exchange of opinions and thoughts, and it was a healthy conversation. But I trust that this process helped him to kind of process more things, and he left with that feeling, I know, because I confirmed. But at the same time, it also gave me an opportunity to know his process, his thinking, his lines of thought, and how they view things, and that is very important. And I think when we look at circumstances that happen, be it in traffic, whether we are in a community gathering, whether we've traveled and the like, and our young people are also within the same community seeing what we see, it's very important for us to have conversations about this with them, because then it helps for you, number one, to gauge how they feel, number two, to know where they are. Some of these occurrences, when they come, they are really traumatizing and they are and if we choose to be passive, you might not even know what is going through based on what has happened. You know, but if you make it a point to engage them and to talk to them, then it becomes kind of revealing where they are, where they stand and what they think about some of these circumstances. And at the end of the day, there is need for you to intervene, need for you to have an opinion or a thought, to give them feedback and the like. It becomes an open invitation for you to do that in a friendly way, in a casual way, and then you continue engaging. And this is really the objective. So let's always take keen note of the things that happen around us, so that when they happen, we can always take that side-eye glance, check with your son, check with your daughter, and then see what they see, what they're thinking. And if you really feel that it's something where you need to talk to them because they don't have a clear understanding of what's going on, that is very important. And we owe it to them, we need to do that. So I hope this thought is helpful to you. I would really encourage you that when you feel that these thoughts are important, encourage others, your peers, your peer parents to subscribe. And if you have a typical question, or if you really want to invite us to a gathering where you want us to talk to your peers and the like, you can always reach us out to the number 0776 243330. And we'll be happy to keep in touch with you. We'll be happy to answer any questions that you have, and we'll be happy to interact and engage. Thanks for watching. Till next time.